Hello everyone, today we will talk about the five kingdom classification. Why classification is important? Suppose you want to borrow a biochemistry book from library, and in library there are so many subjects like art, science and commerce. In science also you have variation like physics, chemistry and biology. In biology you have many subjects like biochemistry, cell biology and molecular biology. Still you get your book very easily. Why? Because they are systematically arranged, and you know that biochemistry belongs to biology and biology belongs to science. So what you do, you just go to science section, then biology section and then biochemistry section, and that way you get the book. Similarly, this planet is home for millions of species. So classification help to identify and study them very easily. So what how classification helps? It groups the organism with similar characteristics. It makes them easier to identify and study. It provides the universal system of naming because we know that in different language and different nature, region of world, different name of any organism. Suppose for mango, it has different name across the world, but we know scientifically with one name, and that is Mangifera indica. It reveals the evolutionary relationship, and classification helps to know how organisms are descended from a common ancestor from a long period of time. And it has also practical application in agriculture, medicine and biotechnology. Suppose you have developed an antibiotic against the peptidoglycan cell wall of bacteria, and since you know what kind of bacteria have peptidoglycan cell wall, what you do, you just can use that antibiotic against that bacteria, and you are definitely not going to use that against the fungi because you know that fungi has different cell wall, and that is made up of chitin. So that way classification helps. So before just jumping into the five kingdom classification, let's first talk about the history of biological classification. So very first classification, idea of classification was given by Aristotle. He is also known as the father of biology, and he did the classification based on observable characteristic like habitat. There were three groups like terrestrial, animals on land like lions and horses, aquatic, animals on in water like fishes and whales, aerial means animal which spend their most of the time in air like birds. Second category was presence or absence of blood. Enama animal were categorized into two different groups. Enama means animals with blood, and anema, a means lacking, and animal without blood are called anema. Third category was on the basis of mode of movement. So like walking like humans, flying like birds, swimming like fishes and crawling like reptiles. So these were different characteristics on which Aristotle classified the animals. But this was not very scientifically accurate because if you look at the bat, it look very similar to bird and it can also fly. And if you look at whale, it look very similar to fishes and it can swim. But that's not true. Bats is not a bird and whale is not a fish. These both are mammals. They are very similar to humans. That's why morphology on the basis of just observable characteristic we cannot classify animals. So after centuries, two kingdom classification was proposed by Carolus Linnaeus in 1735. He is also known as father of taxonomy. So he classified organisms in two different kingdoms on the basis of nutrition and locomotion, and these two kingdoms were Plantae and Animalia. On the basis of nutrition, organisms which are autotrophic were grouped under Plantae, and which are heterotrophic were grouped under Animalia. Autotrophic means they made their food by themselves, and you can say that Plantae take their nutrition from inorganic substances, whereas Animalia take their nutrition from organic substances. Second basis was locomotion. Their Plantae were fixed, they were non-motile, and Animalia can move, means they can change their place. Although for that time this classification was great discovery, it was a very great achievement, but when the studies advanced, they found that this also had limits. Why? Because it did not distinguish between simple and complex organisms, because bacteria like unicellular and plants like multicellular organisms were kept in same groups. So here comes the three kingdom classification, and this was proposed by Ernst Haeckel in 1866. He introduced another kingdom called Protista, where he introduced the all unicellular organisms. So now there are three kingdom classification. First is Protista, second is Plantae, and third is Animalia. Protista contain all unicellular organisms, Plantae contain multicellular autotrophs, and Animalia contain multicellular heterotrophs. Still, this classification also failed because it does not distinguish between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes organisms, they don't have nucleus, membrane bound organelles, whereas eukaryotes contain the nucleus and membrane bound organelles. So, to improve that, four kingdom classification was proposed by Copeland in 1956, and he introduced another kingdom called Monera. In Monera, all prokaryotes were grouped. Pro means before and karyon means nucleus, means organisms they lack nucleus, they were before the nucleus. So here DNA are present in cytoplasm because they don't have nucleus. In eukaryotes, U means true and karyon means nucleus. Eukaryotes have nucleus and their DNA is present in nucleus. So on the basis of that, again the Monera kingdom was proposed for prokaryotes. Example of prokaryotes are bacteria and archaebacteria, and other all were kept in eukaryotes. So now again these three kingdoms are present: Protista, Metaphyta, and Metazoa. Protista contain all unicellular eukaryotes, Metaphyta contain multicellular eukaryotes, and Metazoa also contain multicellular eukaryotes. But difference is phyta means plant. Here the multicellular eukaryotes are autotrophs, and here the multicellular eukaryotes are heterotrophs. Zoa means animals and phyta means plants. Still, four kingdom classification, in four kingdom classification, plants and fungi were grouped in same kingdom, and these two are very different organisms. Because of that, to improve that, five kingdom classification was introduced by R.H. Whittaker in 1969, and on the basis of cell type, cellular organization, mode of nutrition, reproduction, and phylogenetic relationships. So here in previous four kingdom classification, all were there. Monera was there, which contained prokaryotes. Protista contained the unicellular eukaryotes. Plantae contained the multicellular autotrophs, and Animalia contain multicellular heterotrophs. So now new kingdom is placed here, and here all the fungi were placed. Why fungi are different? Let's talk about them. But before that, let's see about the all kingdom. So Monera contain the unicellular prokaryotes, Protista contain unicellular eukaryotes, and fungi contain mostly multicellular heterotrophs, but yeast is unicellular. Plantae contain multicellular autotrophs, and Animalia contain multicellular heterotrophs. So question is that if Fungi are heterotrophs. Animals are also heterotrophs and multicellular. Why don't fungi were merged with Animalia? So answer is, first is, fungi take their nutrition through absorption. Means what they do, they release their digestive enzyme in on their food outside their body, and then they absorb the nutrients, whereas animal ingest their food and digest them inside their body. So because of they have different mode of uptake of food, they are different. Second difference is, Animalia does not contain cell wall, whereas fungi and Plantae both contain the cell wall. But difference is that in fungi, cell wall is made up of chitin and Plantae is made up of cellulose. Although there are so many differences, but these were main criteria on the basis of that this classification was proposed. Until 1990, most accepted classification was this five kingdom classification proposed by Ernst Haeckel. But nowadays, most acceptable classification system is three domain and six kingdom classification. We will talk about that in later section in another lecture. So this was all about the five kingdom classification. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.